Hey everybody, and welcome to Malt Muser Whiskey Reviews. I am Eric. I have two 2020 releases from Laphroaig on the bar for tasting today. First, we have the Laphroaig Cairdeas Port and Red Wines Casks, and I will follow that up with Laphroaig 10 Cask Strength Batch 12. As always here on the channel, I'm going to give you a nose taste finish review of these whiskeys. I'll tell you a bit about the value, give you my final thoughts, final scores, leave you with the malt musing. But first, a bit about Laphroaig, and we will start with the Cairdeas. Laphroaig, Islay Distillery, off the west coast of Scotland, known for its peated single malt scotches with a lot of rich iodine-intense smoke. Cairdeas, Gaelic for friendship, is an annual release from Laphroaig. They've been putting these out for upwards of a decade now, and here in 2020, they have put together a port and wine casks finish. I'm going to get this in the glass and tell you a little bit more about it. Here's what the bottle's looking like. We let this get a little bit of oxygen. I'll give you the background. So this one, bottled at 52% ABV. Here's what it has to say. This Cairdeas 2020 is a marriage of fully matured second fill ruby port barriques and ex-bourbon barrels finished in red wine casks. So they are taking at least 10-year-old whiskey that has been maturing in port wine casks as well as ex-bourbon casks, putting it together and marrying it in a red wine cask. So it does not say explicitly on here whether it is non-chill filtered or natural color. So we might have to assume that they've chill filtered and added some color to this, although at the 52% ABV, it's probably unlikely that they've chill filtered this much. So that's the rundown here on the Cairdeas 2020. We'll get this back in the tube and start tasting. Here's what the color is looking like. You can definitely tell that this has been aging in some type of red wine cask or sherry cask. That little red hue you're getting on the, and otherwise Laphroaig usually something that's primarily in ex-bourbon. So usually a golder color. Okay. Here we go. Very rich and sweet on the nose. The smoke and peat, of course it's there. It's a Laphroaig. However, you're getting some really dark, deep red fruit notes. I want to say plum, raisin, maybe really, really black cherry. A little bit of honey as well. And maybe a bit of pepper. And it's, yeah, just spices. There's some cinnamon. Wow, there's a little bit of sweet fruit coming too now. Berries. It's kind of red berry, maybe even blackberry. Really nice on the nose, really heavy on those red fruit notes, which you would expect from a whiskey that's been aging this long in port. Okay, let's give this a taste. Let's launch it. Arrives pretty sweet and oily. Immediately you get a burst of kind of a slight citrus accented with some heavy red notes. Again, plum, raisin almost, vanilla. As it develops, the peat and the pepper really kick in. You can feel it on your tongue. Still quite oily, dark chocolate, peppercorn. You start getting some of those cloying notes, which I kind of associate with port. Port is usually a spicy, sweet, almost sickly sweet, fortified wine. You can tell on this, it's that sticky, kind of cloying, cherry, berry, cranberry, slightly on the bitter side, very sticky. And then it goes into a medium finish. You're left with a little bit of that, again, sticky red fruit. A little bit of coffee note. Vanilla. A little bit of pepper. Put a little bit of water on this. 52% ABV. Do about half teaspoon. That finish really dries out towards the end, which I guess you would expect. Red wines typically, especially in this case, giving you that kind of drying finish. Okay. So with the addition of water, the vanilla and the bourbon notes are coming through more now. Starting to make a little more room for them with water, given how strong and assertive that port and wine notes were on the initial nose neat. This one seems to have kind of balanced the scales a little bit. There's that kind of iodine Band-Aid note. Wow. Vanilla. Quite nice. Arrives again, gentle on the palate, but very oily. Sweet, dark red fruits, slight bitter. Then it really kind of kicks into high gear in the development again. It's a drying pepper, those sticky, dark red fruits, almost like really, really dark black cherry, maybe chocolate-covered cherry, other berries, plum. Leaves you with kind of a medium finish here again. Quite nice. A little bit more caramel and vanilla, a little saltiness coming through now. And drying, tannic. For folks who like red wine matured whiskeys, or red wine finished whiskeys for that matter, I think folks will really like this. Okay. Up next, another release here in 2020 from Laphroaig. 10-year-old at cask strength. So this one, they've kicked the ABV up a little bit from last year. This one is 60.1%. Last year's 58.6. And here's the story on the original cask strength. This one has not been shell filtered, which it says explicitly on here. We mature Laphroaig whiskey in seasoned oak casks. And this imbues the whiskey with the heart and strength of the wood. These casks are charred to impart slight sweet vanilla nuttiness on the oak. It's only barrier filtered, only to remove small char particles, etc., etc., etc. So this is basically Laphroaig 10 bottled at cask strength. They do a release of this every year. This one in particular, they usually put the date that it's bottled on here, right here on the tube and on the bottle. February 2020, batch 12. Okay. Here is what the bottle looks like. And let's get this in the glass. Again, we do not know whether or not they have added color to this or not. We are going to assume that they probably have. But for those just new to Laphroaig, you tend to find most Laphroaigs looking more of a color like this. Darker kind of on the gold side. This is pretty much all ex-bourbon cask as far as we know. And let's go into the nose. So the nose here, the smoke, yes, peat, yes, but it's deceptively coy. It seems like it's holding back on you a little bit. There's some sweet notes coming through, kind of your typical Laphroaig notes that kind of, again, vanilla, caramel, slight grassiness. Of course, the iodine, medicinal, signature peat smoke from Laphroaig. There's a lot of honey and butterscotch in this one. Really getting a lot of those sweet butterscotch notes. Toffee. If there's any fruit, it's apple. Maybe a little bit of pear. Also some light brown sugar. Ooh. Strong vanilla. Rich. Quite nice. Despite being almost a little bit over 60% ABV, you can really give yourself a good nose of this. It's not burning too much. All right. Taste. Oh, wow. So intense. Whew. Heavy punch in the face. Heavy pepper. Peat is just overtakes your mouth. You've got a lot of smoke, charcoal, barrel char, coming in with vanilla. Again, vanilla caramel. Slight grassy note. Seashell. A little bit of saltiness. Then there's that vanilla note really playing well. Again, caramel going into a nice finish, coffee bean, dark chocolate, butterscotch. And it is a long finish. Wow, very complex whiskey. A lot happening here, which is what I tend to notice a lot in the 10 cask strength. If you haven't seen it, I did a top 5 Laphroaig video a couple months back where the 10 cask strength specifically, I think, was the batch 10. But 10 cask strength in general is my favorite release that's readily available from Laphroaig, and it's for this reason. Such an intense, rich, powerful flavor. A lot of complexity in this. Great long finish. And with water, you can kind of control how intense this whiskey is, which is what we're going to do right now. I'm going to put a bit of water on this, going for about a full teaspoon here. Wow, fresh peat, honey. There's an herbal note. It's like sharp parsley almost, grassy. Butterscotch again, vanilla. A little bit of that apple, citric apple acidity in it. Milk chocolate, maybe. Very nice. Okay, we're gonna give this another taste. Wow, with water, it almost becomes richer. And what's really coming out now is almost like a molasses, ginger snap cookie, dark chocolate. Again, coffee bean. Like those chocolate covered espresso beans. Maybe a little bit of white chocolate too. There's a bit of butterscotch still here. Creamy. I'm really enjoying this with water as it's toned that pepper down a little bit and a lot of these other flavors to really kind of get more space. Nice long finish. Just like a freshly baked chocolate chip cookie. A little bit of baking spice, maybe cinnamon, that butterscotch honey, slight dry toffee note carrying you through to the end on this. Wow. Another great 10 cask strength release from Laphroaig. No doubt about it. Okay. So, a bottle of the Laphroaig Cairdeas 2020 has went up a little bit this year. This is about $100. Considering what it's been aged in, I guess you can expect that. Also just, regular inflation and the way prices go up. So at about $100, if you're somebody who's really into the red wine stuff or the whiskeys that have matured or been finished in port, I think this is going to be one worth your money. So it's a solid value at that. Also for anybody who's a big Laphroaig fan like myself. So solid at 100. The Laphroaig 10 cask strength, these you're going to find right around that $75 to $80 range these days. You won't usually find them much cheaper than that if you do buy them on site. But I still think this is a really good buy at $80. So high value on this one. Okay. Final thoughts on these two 2020 releases from Laphroaig. First with the Cairdeas, I really like what they've done here. I think it's a well put together whiskey. You can tell it does have some youth to it, but if you're a fan of the port, wine finishes, you're really going to enjoy this as it is very heavy on the wine and port notes. It's just a lot of dark red fruit, as I was saying. For folks who like things a little more balanced, this one might not be the one for you, mostly because I think those flavors are a bit overpowering. But all in all, I think it's a solid release from Laphroaig. My final score on that is going to be a 3.75 out of 5, which means I highly recommend you try this or pick up a bottle if you like it and find it at a good price. As for the 10 cask strength, I think this is just another great release in their line of awesome 10 cask strength releases. It goes without saying when it comes to me that I will go to the mat for the 10 cask strength each and every time, and I'm happy to say that this batch 12 is another real winner. It doesn't quite have the complexities that I noticed in the batch 10 and batch 11 of the last 2 years. However, this is just so straight up enjoyable and has a bit of complexity of its own. These heavy bourbon notes, the sweet caramel, the butterscotch, real treat. And it comes in at a price that just can't be beat. If you want an Islay single malt scotch and want to taste what it's supposed to taste like, coming in at full cask strength with no dilution, 10 cask strength is the way to go. I'm going to give that a 4.5 out of 5, which again means I highly recommend you go get yourself a bottle. So those are my reviews of these two brand new releases from Laphroaig here in 2020, the Cairdeas Port and Red Wine Casks and the 10 cask strength batch 12. If you've yet to, do hit subscribe. That way you won't miss any of my reviews, which come out every single Friday and catch on Happy Hour Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And with that, I will send you over to your malt musing. We'll catch you next week. Cilantro.